Welcome back. Sometimes an artist or a cultural moment, it changes the way we understand the world and ourselves. A new essay collection explores how place, memory, and music shape identity tracing, a journey from Baltimore to Black diaspora's creative hubs in Lagos and Johannesburg. Joining me now is the founder of True Laurels. We've got Lawrence Burney. And Lawrence, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us, brother. And, I think about Baltimore, and I think about it's a lovely place. I've been there many times, but it's also a place for you where identity is shaped. For somebody that doesn't know, give us a little bit about Baltimore.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, I mean, I think Baltimore is a cool place. It's an interesting place. I think it's fairly small or medium-sized city. Majority Black population. I grew up on the east side of town. It's defined by a lot of things. It's a very I would say eccentric city at its heart. Um, we all love seafood very much. Crabs is like part of our cuisine. Every place you go to, you'll be able to get like a jumbo lump crab meat thrown on something that it probably don't belong on. And Yeah, I mean it has very deep history. It's a very old city. Billie Holiday is from here. Frederick Douglass spent his formative years here. Thurgood Marshall, just so on and so forth. I think it's a place that's like steeped in Black American heritage and history, and I'm proud to add to that legacy in any way I can.
And so you are adding to that legacy. You're adding to that legacy not just in a national way, but in an international way. Your travels have taken you so far as Lagos and Johannesburg, and you're fusing your cultural experience and you bring it into this moment. So let's talk about where you are today and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, my travels over the past 10 years have I'm a music journalist by training, and I've been doing that at least probably since 2012. My first full-time job in media was in 2016 at a company called Vice, which is based in Brooklyn. So that job brought me up to New York City, and at the time that I was at Vice, they were kind of scaling into this internationally recognized media conglomerate, and it was a great time for journalists to be sent all around the world and just trying to figure out what was happening in different pockets of the globe. And I was fortunate enough to have editors and higher ups that trusted me and believed in my voice, believed in my journalistic instincts, and that took me to, like you mentioned, Johannesburg, South Africa. Um, I've gone to many places in Europe, Lagos, Nigeria, Kingston, Jamaica, and just trying to understand the through lines and the parallels between, my own experience as a Black American and Black people in the globe, around the globe, and how that art reflects their societal condition. And it was nothing better than that for me. I love traveling. I love learning about what other Black folks have going on. I like seeing, what common ground we have, but I also love learning like the things that make us different, because I think we have a lot to learn from each other.
And so really you do storytelling. I mean, the work that you do is telling the story. Uh, from your experience, what story do you want to tell now?
Um, I wouldn't say there's one particular story I'm trying to tell, but in the book, No Sense in Wishing, it is largely based on my own experiences as I've traveled through life. A lot of it kind of tracks me from adolescence up until, I would say, present day, or like somewhat present day. And really, I'm just trying to advocate for the transformative powers of art and creativity. I think everybody can relate to encountering an album or an artist or a film, maybe even a neighborhood event that just kind of left this lasting impression on you, where everything you do from that point forward is altered and changed because you encountered something that really either motivated you or gave you the permission to be a person that maybe you were afraid to be, or you didn't know that you were interested in one thing. And yeah, I would say, like, at the root of it, the collection it's about self-discovery, but it's also just kind of like a love letter to the different forms of cultural production that left me changed.
Yeah. And as I think about writing and putting these essays together and coming out with this writing, a labor of love on some say because it's experiential, it's based on your experience, but then it's also educational too because you want to educate people on the experiences and have some forward thinking in it as well. When you look at that forward thinking component, what is it that you want people to look at in a forward way and in a way that's reflective?
Yeah, I would say, I would say like one of the goals of a music journalist or a culture journalist or culture writer, however you want to frame it, um, I think we all have this secret initiative to make people like the things that we like. So I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of my motivation. Since I was a kid, I was always that person that's like, hey, listen to this artist, listen to this album, watch this documentary. And I feel like what I'm doing in those moments is really advocating for people to just dig deep into everything that's around us. I think everybody listens to music, everybody watches films, everybody, goes to the neighborhood cookout. But I think if you look deeper into these things, they can tell you a deeper story. If you listen to, let's say, New York drill music, which is very controversial because it's violent in nature. But I feel like if you sit with that music, you'll be able to learn what young people in inner city environments in America are feeling. It's like maybe you can look at it as in a short-sighted way of like, these kids are just running around with no guidance and they want to inflict pain on one another. But sometimes you'll listen to a song and you'll learn like, okay, this kid experienced this at 8 years old. They saw something happen to a close family member of theirs and it traumatized them. And this is how they express themselves. This is how they, in their mind, they might be fighting back against an injustice that they experienced on their own. So I just think, all the things that we kind of like absorb in a way that's can be unconscious. If you peel back the layers, there's always a story there. So I think if anything, what I'm always trying to get people to do is just respect art, respect creativity. I think there's always something there to take away,
Yeah.
whether or not it's your your entertainment of choice or not.
Let me recall a conscious memory for you. Your mother did an opening act for Gil Scott-Heron.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
When you think about that act, how did it shape you, your career, what you're doing now?
Mm-hmm. Well, in that moment, I was 8 years old. So, when I was growing up, my grandfather is a musician. He toured with Parliament Funkadelic for a couple European tours in the early 90s. I was an infant at the time, so I don't remember that happening. But, he lived an artist life. He drove cabs during the day. During the night, he was rehearsing with his band or playing gigs around the city or just around the general region, whether that be Baltimore, D.C., or maybe some certain parts of Virginia. And my mother was a vocalist in the jazz group that he had. So in my household growing up, the whole block was greeted by my grandfather playing his guitar on the porch, or band practice in the basement with my mother after she got off work, coming to rehearse some songs that my grandfather might have written. So that show, it was just like it was like any other gig that I would be dragged along to if nobody could watch me. But I think as I got older and I learned who Gil Scott-Heron was, that became like a really pivotal part of my memory, where it's like, oh, okay, my mother was doing all these cool things, and once I got older and started to try to find my footing as a creative person, you dig deep into your history and you try to look for things that fortify these new journeys that you find yourself on. And I think, looking back and seeing that my mother opened up for Gil Scott-Heron, and then Me finding my own fandom of Gil Scott Heron's work as I got into my early adulthood, it really, it just instills like a level of confidence in you, but it also, I think, gives you encouragement because it makes you feel like you're building on a legacy that was already built by people in your family. So I think if anything, it just made me feel comfortable. It made me feel like, okay, this is where I belong.
When you look at culture and history, there are two big things that, all of us engage in on a daily basis. We take a look and we're a part of culture. And then on the other side, history is also part of what shapes culture. When you look at Baltimore, you look at, Johannesburg and the places that you've traveled. Talk to me about, from a music perspective, that history and culture, how the two have intersected and how they've impacted your life.
Yeah, I would say, oddly enough, I saw a lot of parallels there. Like I said, Baltimore is a majority Black city, about 65% Black most of my life. It might be in the lower 60s now, give or take. Um, it's and while it's majority Black, obviously the majority of the wealth and the majority of the conveniences and things that people enjoy don't really happen in the Black areas. They happen where white folks tend to live. You get the sense that most of the things that are happening in those cities are catered not to the Black people there, even though the Black people are the people that inform the culture largely. Um, so you have that, but then you also have these really cool electronic underground music scenes that have international reach. Over here we have Baltimore club music, which is born out of Chicago house and like Miami bass, some drum and bass out of London. And then in South Africa you have I'm a piano. You have you have a long lineage of South African house. So I think they moved to a similar beat. When I was going out there, the music felt very similar to the music I would hear growing up, going to house parties or going to shows. So yeah, I think it's one of those places where from the outside they're framed as these dangerous places where a bunch of crime happens, and even if those things do happen, if you come from one of those places, you know that that's not the totality of it. You know that's just a small fraction of the community that lives there. So I think being from Baltimore and being from a place that I know is framed in a very incomplete way to the outside world, I tend to gravitate towards places that have a similar framing because I know at the core of it is way more than that.
Before we wrap up, I want to give people an opportunity to tap into your work and the things that you're doing. So for people who want to get the book, the essays, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so No Sense in Wishing, my debut essay collection comes out 6 days from today, actually. July 8th. It's published through Atria Books, which is under Simon & Schuster. And it'll be available in pretty much, wherever you can find books across the country, you'll be able to find it. Um, I'm doing a small tour, a couple of dates in New York City, a couple of dates in DC, Baltimore as well, and then just other pockets in the DMV. And you can find me on social media at True Laurels. That's TrueLaurels, both on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, certainly been a pleasure having you, my brother, and definitely want to continue to keep up the great work, letting us know a little bit about history and destiny. Great work, and look forward to seeing it and on a bigger stage and hearing you in an even greater voice. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, Lawrence Burney, who is the founder of True Laurels. Peace, my brother. We thank you so much for being with us. And guess what? We're taking a quick break. Be back with more right after this.